doing that. Thank you and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Horsham Planning Committee. I am Councillor Ellis Brown and I will be chairing this committee meeting this evening, with the exception of one application which I will refer to shortly. I shall be supported by the Vice Chair, Councillor Van der Boer, and the professional officers. Thank you for attending, and may I remind members and of the public, that this is not a forum for the public to ask questions or challenge the points raised during the debate by officers or members of the committee. You must not engage with the members or call out during the meeting. Thank you. For those members of the public who have requested to speak, when invited to do so, it's important that you keep to your allotted time, and I shall be monitoring that. And you will be asked to finish once I have asked you to conclude. Your comments and your discussion points must be relevant to the application the committee is considering. We're not expecting a fire drill this evening, so should you hear the alarm, please make your way to the nearest fire exit, which is at the rear of the chamber. And we meet outside, contrary to what others think. We do actually meet outside the Lynn Cross Public House. May I also ask council members and members of the public, please to switch your phones to mobile phones to off, and other electronic devices also to silent. And remember to turn your microphones on before speaking and turn them off when you have finished. When members are voting, please make sure your arm is clearly raised so that we can accurately capture the votes. I also remind members on the committee you cannot vote on applications within your ward. Further, please can everyone here show respect to each other throughout the meeting and refrain from any personal comments relating to the officers and members of the committee. Before we proceed, could the officers here this evening please introduce themselves, starting with the officers on my right.
My name is Hannah Darley. I'm a senior planning officer.
I'm Guy Everest, the applications team leader.
Jason Hawkes, Principal Planning Officer.
Emma Parks, the Head of Development.
Claire Brown, Principal Planning Solicitor.
Melissa Stallard, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence and notification of substitute members. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We have apologies from Councillor Colette Blackburn and Councillor John Trollope.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of September. Do you all agree I can sign these as a true and accurate reflection of the meeting? All those in favour say agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much. Declarations of members' interest. Are there any declarations of interest for the members of the committee? No. Okay. Announcements from the chair. Agenda item 6, it's DC 250138, Roseview Park, Hill Farm Lane, Codmore Hill. As this is in my ward, I'm unable to vote. Therefore, this item shall be chaired by the Vice Chair. There is also an addendum to the committee report relating to certain applications on the agenda, and these will be referenced by the officers during their presentations. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 5 is DC 250415, former Novartis site, Parsonage Road, Horsham. Please could the officer present the application to committee? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Firstly, members should note the addendums for this item. The first addendum relates to this item and also to agenda items 6, 7 and 8. This highlights the recent government announcement regarding the removal of the water neutrality restrictions in November. The addendum states that in the event that water neutrality restrictions are lifted, prior to this application or the other applications being determined, the relevant water neutrality conditions outlined in the reports would be removed and replaced with a condition requiring each dwelling to meet the 110 litres per day per person requirement under building regulations. Members should also note the second addendum, which is strictly just for this item for Novartis. This addendum notes proposed amendments to conditions relating to tree protection measures and refuse provision, and also clarifies an error in the reports. Here we see the site highlighted in red. This application relates to the east side of the Novartis site only, as shown here. This is known as Phase 3 and is shown here in the red. The site is to be developed by Muse Places. Phase 1 and 2 to west include the existing buildings shown blue here. A separate application is being considered for development of phases 1 and 2 for 206 dwellings. Phases 1 and 2 are developed by Lovell Partnerships. The current application for phase 3 is for 244 dwellings. This is the proposal before you today. Altogether, the whole site, including all phases, would result in 450 dwellings across the whole of the Novartis site. This slide shows the previous outline consent for the whole of the site. This was submitted in 2018 and approved in 2020 under DC 182687. The proposal split the site into two, with 300 residential units approved to the west side of the site, shown here in yellow, and 25,000 square metres of commercial floor space approved to the eastern side, shown here in turquoise. The current application rates the area shown here approved for the commercial floor space to the east of the site. It should be noted that the outline consent was never implemented and this permission has now lapsed. It is still, however, a material consideration for determination of the current application. So an aerial view of the site. You can see the railway crossing to the south and east boundaries, Foundry Lane commercial areas to the east. Over the railway line, you've got Richard Collier College, Linden Homes development site is directly to the north, and Richmond Road conservation areas to west of the site over the railway lines. This plan shows the existing state of the site, which is mostly hard-standing from the previous Novartis use. The site has been vacant since 2014, currently surrounded by hoardings. Turning to the current proposal, this shows the proposed layout for the 244 dwellings. The proposal is a mix of 7 blocks of flats and a variety of dwelling houses. The proposal utilises the existing vehicular access from Parsonage Road. This plan shows the landscape features with a locally equipped area of play and a local area of play proposed to the northeast of the site and an open space area to the south. All the houses are set in from the boundaries within a landscape buffer. This plan shows the position of the proposed leap and lap in better detail to the eastern side of the site. Here we see how the site would be divided by a main central boulevard leading away from the central buildings down to the southern corner of the site. In terms of building heights, this shows the proposed heights. The proposed blocks of flats would all be 4 stories. The flats are shown here in yellow. You can see scattered throughout the site. You can see 2 flats to the western side, 3 blocks to the eastern side, and 2 blocks to the south side. Then you have a variety of houses between 2 and 3 stories tall, shown in blue and red on this plan. The density of the proposal is 52 dwellings per hectare. The proposed heights and densities of the dwellings is comparable to the surrounding area. Turning to the design, this shows the elevations for Block C, which is one of the blocks located to the east of the site. You can see the modern design here, with a vertical emphasis to the windows, taking its inspiration from the retained Art Deco buildings located within Phase 1. The predominant material will be brick, hewed in character areas, but consistent across the proposals. This is the ground floor for Block C, which comprises 5 flats, a cycle store, and a refuse store. It's a similar layout for the other flats proposed. This is the elevations for Block A, which would be sited nearer to the retained buildings to the west of the site, which I said is not part of this proposal. This is a slightly different design. Again, it's a modern with a vertical emphasis. You can see the similarities here in terms of materials when compared to Block C. The other apartment blocks propose a similar design to the 2 I've just shown you. So here we have the proposed ground floor for Block C. This would comprise 4 flats, again with an integral refuse and cycle store. In terms of housing mix, the proposal is for 240 affordable housing units to be managed by Clarion. The majority of dwellings would either be 2 or 3 bedrooms units, which is considered appropriate. The applicants are working on the delivery of 143 affordable rented units and 101 shared ownership units for Phase 3. This is not firmed up at this point, but it's an indication of how the site could be laid out. This is in addition to the 73 affordable units to be delivered at Phases 1 and 2, along with 133 market units. As outlined in the report, we are not able to secure a 100% affordable housing scheme under a legal agreement due to grant funding issues. However, the legal agreement for Phase 3 would secure a policy requirement for 35% affordable housing, with the required split between affordable rent and shared ownership for 35%. The legal agreement would also include a requirement to submit details of the 10-year split for the remaining 65% affordable housing, so that the council can be satisfied that the additional housing would provide a suitable amount of affordable rented units subject to a nomination agreement. Overall, the development will result in much needed housing with an appropriate mix between market and affordable units when you take the whole site together. This shows details of entrance bays for 2 of the blocks. Again, you can see the influence of the Art Deco buildings and attention to detail in design. Turning to the dwellings, here's some example of 2- and 3-story houses. Again, they've got the modern design with a vertical emphasis and have the appearance of townhouses. So see the material palette carried over to the houses with a metal standing seam roof proposed here. So this is more of the proposed houses. Again, you see the modern design. This shows a pair of semi-detached houses with detailing to the side elevation. Here's some further housing types. Again, a similar palette of materials and design. The bottom houses include an underpass to allow access to the parking to the rear. There's a number of this type of housing proposed throughout. These coach houses include accommodation at first floor level. Some more of the proposed houses. Again, you can see the modern design and vertical emphasis. This shows 2 types of terraces proposed for 3 houses. The terrace on the right is again a coach house style with accommodation above parking. Turning to street scenes, these are street elevations through the middle of the site. You see the variety of houses with flats in place, giving it some interest. And this is taken through the middle of the site. Some more street elevations. The bottom street scene would be faced onto Parsonage Road. You can see that no dwellings here are above 3 stories facing onto Parsonage Road. These dwellings would also be set back from Parsonage Road at a slightly lower ground level. This allows the retention of the majority of the existing trees along the northern boundary. The top street scene shows the main boulevard in between 2 blocks of flats, which goes across the site, east to west. Some further street scenes here. So you can see the blocks of flats here, the variety of houses and flats, which give the street scenes visual interest, but also tied in by the materials and modern design. This shows the access onto Parsonage Road. The access would utilise the existing access with some modifications. These modifications have been required by the transport consultants. For parking, the scheme includes 329 parking spaces. This is in line with County Highways guidance, which requires 326 spaces. For the highways impacts, this was a main consideration in the previous scheme, and we've received comments again from 2 separate highway consultants. These are from the County Highways team and Stentec Transport Planning, both of who agree that the scheme is appropriate in terms of its highway impacts. Notably, this proposal for houses results in a significantly less transport movements when compared to the previous commercial outline consent for this site. The highway consultants agree that the impact of nearby consultants will be appropriate, taking into account the increase in traffic generated by this proposal in cumulation with phases 1 and 2. This is subject conditions and legal agreement obligations outlined in the report. So this slide shows phase 3 in the context of all the sites, including phases 1 and 2, which said we have a current separate application. You can see how the site all comes together now with the central buildings in place as the main focus, proposed site with boulevards either side. And this shows an artist's impression showing what phase 3 could look like. In terms of the principle of developments, previously this part of the site was granted permission for 25,000 square metres commercial floor space under the outlines consent, as I've already stated. Consent was also granted for up to 300 residential units to the west of the site. This outline consent was granted in 2020 and has now lapsed. As stated in the report, this current application, as with the previous consent, is classed as a departure from the 2015 local plan. Policy 8 of the HTPF requires this site to be used principally for educational research uses or for employment uses. As required by Policy 9 of the local plan, the applicant has undergone a significant marketing exercise to ascertain if there's any interest in phase 3 for future commercial use. The marketing is thorough, undertaken over 36 months. The reasons for lack of interest are outlined in detail in the report. This takes into account significant changes to the economy since outline consent for the commercial use was granted back in 2020. This includes economic uncertainty, rising build costs, the location of the site, and the effect of the pandemic. In addition, weight is attached to the development of this brownfield site within the built-up area, which has been redundant for 11 years. The scheme would also provide much needed housing with a potential use of this site for 100% affordable housing. Therefore, the principle of proposal is considered appropriate. The scheme is also considered appropriate in terms of its appearance, layout, flood risk, impact on residential amenity, and all other relevant planning considerations. As stated in the report, the proposal is also subject to further details in relation to ecology. Whilst further ecological details are required, the council ecologist has commented that they do not foresee any issues with the submission of the remaining details required. I've indicated that all the header terms for section 106 in this slide, these are also indicated in the committee reports. The scheme is therefore recommended for approval subject to the further ecology details required, subject to the conditions recommended outlined in the reports and the addendum, and also subject to completion of legal agreements to secure the obligations shown here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the first public speaker, which is Mr. Friswell, please.
Thank you very much, sir. I object to the planning application. My first reason is that without a pedestrian route across the railway at the southern end of the development, this will be a miserable place to live. Think of a young family. The maid breadwinner goes off to work in the family car, leaving the family without transport. There is no way for them to walk easily to the town park, the hospital, the station, or the shops and library in Horsham town centre. A pedestrian tunnel or bridge across the railway must be built before the first homes are available for occupation, and this must be a condition of planning consent. A second reason for objecting is that the applicants have not considered indoor social community facilities for young people and teenagers. Without these, there is likely to be ongoing disruption in the community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Jane Apostolou, and apologies if I've got your name wrong. I should have waited. Thank you. And you have just, if you could just wait for a moment till Mr. Friswell is back in there. Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
I am Jane Apostolou, Chair of Wimblehurst Road Residents Association, which has been established since 1985. We have been working with residents in Gordon Road, Richmond Road, Orchard Close and North Heath Lane to submit a collective response to this planning application. We are supportive of the Novartis site being developed, but not supportive of what is currently being proposed. This high-density development will inevitably have a substantial impact on the surrounding road network, which will be unable to accommodate the huge resultant increase in traffic. Wimblehurst Road, Richmond Road, Parsonage Road and North Heath Lane are already subject to an excessive amount of traffic movements each day, which has increased substantially since the opening of the Bowhunt School and the ongoing development of the Mowbray site. All roads in the locality are narrow with no room for overtaking. This makes it unsafe for cyclists, although this mode of transport is being highly advocated within the planning application. Long queues of traffic are created when a bus is stationary at a stop and also at parent drop-off and pick-up times at schools access from North Heath Lane and Holbrook. Housing proposed to be installed close to the 24-hour maintenance yard owned by Balfour Beatty will be subject to a high level of noise and pollution from the diesel-hauled trains. The developer's proposal to deal with this is to install double glazing and trickle ventilation control. Inadequate allocated parking provision on site will lead to inappropriate parking in the narrow surrounding roads. The substantial rise in population will increase difficulty for new residents to access doctors' surgeries and dental practices. There is a lack of A&E facilities within a reasonable distance of the site, and the overcrowded roads could cause impeded access to the area. Given the proposed dense building density of this application, there will be insufficient green open space for residents and to also encourage on-site biodiversity gain. We ask you to carefully consider this planning application and detrimental impact as proposed it will have on the surrounding environment and on Horsham Town for many years to come. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much.
Do I press something to turn it off?
Please. Okay, invite Martin White, please, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you. Yep, that's okay.
Okay.
Yep.
My name is Martin White and I've lived adjacent to the Novartis site since 1974. I object to this application because the impact of the density of housing on the transportation and travel has not been adequately presented by Muse. For example, the transport assessment makes no reference to the 6 schools in Littlehaven and Rothie, to the Forest and Malay secondary schools, to the range of shops and cafes in Rothie, and to the dental surgery. There is no reference to the bus services along King's Road, providing links for residents towards Crawley and down to Worthing. These will all generate significant pedestrian, cycle and vehicular traffic across the Rowie crossing. Paragraph 319 in the Planning Committee report records a query from Network Rail of 7 May that states, and I quote, "The site's only access on the northeast side is via the level crossing. This would likely lead to an increase in level crossing usage. What considerations has the development had on this impact on level crossing safety?" There is no response from Muse on the planning portal, and so the committee report is therefore incorrect in stating that this issue has been addressed. These facilities and destinations mean that the number of vehicles turning right into Parsonage Road from the development will inevitably have a significantly greater impact on queue length than forecast by Muse. Muse has also failed to account for times when the crossing gates stay closed to permit trains to transit from both directions. Mid-morning today, the crossing was closed for 5 minutes, open for just 2, and then closed for 3. Muse has not presented any assessment of how long it would take cars to leave the site at peak time that takes into account the density of traffic on Parsonage Road and the level of site occupancy. But residents need a predictable queue length at the exit to the site, for example, when taking children to and from schools. Muse also fails to address the impact of supermarket vans and courier vehicles parking adjacent to dwellings throughout the day, perhaps for several minutes, inevitably distracting the flow of cars around the site, a particular issue at peak times. A meeting was convened by HDC on 21 May to consider the transport assessment and travel plan. In attendance were HDC, Paul Basham, Nexus Planning and Stantec. The response from HDC to my FOI request for notes and or minutes of the meeting was that no notes were taken at the meeting, nor were minutes circulated. That came as a surprise. To quote from paragraph 320 of the report, Stantec's view is, overall, the transport assessment does not contain significant deficiencies. In less than 3 minutes, I have given just a few examples of deficiencies. I submit that the lack of credible forecast on traffic movements and volume means that councillors do not have the information they need to make an informed decision on the application. Thank you for the time to make an objection.
Thank you very much. If you could just turn the microphone off. Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to invite Erin Futter, please. And you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Erin Footer and I am part of the team at Just Build Homes. We worked with Muse Places during the determination period of this application to engage local residents who support the regeneration of the former Novartis site. As a result, 30 individual letters of support have been written by Horsham residents, each sharing their personal reasons for wanting to see this project go ahead. This development will turn an empty brownfield site into a vibrant new community with 244 much-needed new homes, new public parks and safer routes for walking and cycling. A clear theme amongst supporters is the need for affordable homes in Horsham. Laura Benavinia is a 35-year-old who lives a 5-minute drive from the site. She said, "There's a crisis for affordable housing because it's so expensive around here. I think it's great if the homes are for people who might be working but on a lower income." Many supporters, like Georgina, a young local resident less than a mile from the site, referenced the opportunities that this development could bring. She said, "I currently live with my grandparents, and it would be good for me to eventually move out again. This development might help me achieve this." For others, they are thinking about their families and their futures. Martin is a homeowner who has children looking to move onto the housing ladder. "It's a nightmare. They're just priced out. My son's at university and my daughter wants to go into the NHS. But on the salary she would earn, how is she ever going to get onto the property ladder? I've seen the plans and I think it's a good idea, especially the affordable homes. That site's been empty for ages and it's an excellent location at the centre of town." Supporters also recognise the wider community benefits this development will bring. Dale, a local council renter, said, "It's good for the community, bringing in more people and more money, and hopefully it helps local businesses keep going in these tough times. With what they're planning for new greenery and parks, it sounds good and would be a community asset." Supporters appreciate transforming an unused, sustainable brownfield site, turning it into a thriving community. Lewis Hudson, a young resident a 10-minute walk from the site, is looking to rent. He said, "They're looking at turning a rundown piece of land into a place for people to live. So this is the best thing they could do with it, in my view." These are the voices of local renters, parents, and long-term residents who see this as a solution to Horsham's housing challenges. Tonight, you as councillors have the opportunity to help people like Laura, Georgina, Martin, Dale, and Lewis, and many others who want to live in a home they can afford in the community they call home. You can help them by approving this application and giving people the homes and opportunities they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Nick Smith, please. And you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Nick Smith and I'm a director at Nexus Planning, the planning consultant for this application. I'm speaking in favour of the proposals on behalf of the applicant Muse Places. We are grateful to your officers for their hard work throughout the planning process and for their recommendation that this application is approved. The site has been vacant since 2014 and initial plans for the site to be developed for an education use fell away when the potential occupier at that time was unable to secure funding to develop it. Thereafter, a proposal came forward for a mixed-use development comprising employment floor space and new homes. Outline planning permission was granted for that scheme in 2020. Extensive efforts since that time to secure an employment occupier through marketing the site have not been successful, and the 2020 consent has expired. This is because of factors including changing working patterns since the pandemic, funding challenges and uncertainty in the employment sector in a volatile economic climate. An employment development cannot now be delivered at the site, and we note your officers recognise that the marketing reports submitted with the application are robust and that the site is not viable for commercial use. In that context, and given the pressing need for new homes and the affordable housing waiting list in the district, a residential scheme has been progressed. Two planning applications have been submitted, one relating to the western part of the site that will be heard at a later planning committee, and this one which relates to the eastern section of the site. The scheme has been carefully designed with an appropriate density for a brownfield site made up of houses and flats of different sizes to meet a range of housing needs. All of the homes would have car and cycle parking to meet the council's parking standards, and the scheme includes large areas of open space for play, recreation and ecological enhancements. The application proposes at least 35% of the homes as affordable housing. This equates to 86 affordable homes. 70% of these would be for rent, and a nominations agreement would ensure that these homes could directly address the local housing waiting list. Whilst not forming part of the planning application because of restrictions around securing Homes England grant funding, the intention is that all 244 homes are provided as affordable. Turning to the consultation responses summarised in the committee report, we would draw your attention to the fact that no objections to the application have been lodged by statutory consultees. the transport effects of the development have been found acceptable by both the West Sussex as Highways Authority and an independent auditor on behalf of Horsham. We are encouraged that 30 individuals have written in support of the scheme, that the Horsham Society supports the application in principle, and that North Horsham Parish Council has raised no objection to it. This proposal presents an exciting opportunity to regenerate this sustainable brownfield site for the delivery of high quality
If you
new
could bring
homes.
your comments to a conclusion, please.
With it having been vacant for a considerable period of time, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and we hope that you can endorse your office's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Councillor Nigel Emery, the Ward Councillor for Holbrook West, and you have 5 minutes, Councillor.
Firstly, may I thank the Chairman for allowing me to speak this evening in place of those councillors in Holbrook East who are not available. This development, known locally as the former Novartis site and currently with the name board of the Horsham Enterprise Park, is located in Holbrook East. I'm an HDC ward member for Holbrook West, which includes Wimblehurst Road and the western side of North Heath Lane, both of which are adjacent to the proposed development. I've spoken at length with both members of the Conservation Society and other residents about the impact of this proposal for 244 houses in place of the commercial development which was approved in outlined planning permission in 2020. I have two main reasons for objecting to the recommendation by officers to approve this application. Firstly, for the protection of the economic prosperity of Horsham in accordance with the local plan, and secondly, the adverse impact on local highways, especially upon Wimblehurst Road and Parsonage Road. The current local plan, which continues to be under review by the Inspectorate, contains detailed proposals on the economic prosperity of the district. Within the papers are details of all the sites that are to be developed in the planning period to 2035. There are 39.96 hectares of land that are proposed for economic development. The Novartis site is the second largest of these and represents 10% of the total land that is due to be allocated for economic development in the Horsham district. It comprises 25,000 square feet of commercial development and is classified by our enterprise department as for B10 commercial use. To put this into context for members, there are just 5 development sites in Horsham, and 4 of those are for less than half a hectare. This is a crucially important economic development site. I'm not saying that we don't need social housing. We do, but there is an equal need for employment generation within Horsham. I refer members to page 22 of their packs, in which the enterprise team within Horsham District Council object to the application. The enterprise team believe that this site continues to be a very important opportunity to deliver sustainable, high-quality, mixed-use development, a combination of residential and commercial, and that this proposal is contrary to the needs of the local economy through the addition of 244 houses on top of the 206 contained in parts 1 and B, and is also contrary to the agreement that was put in place between HDC and West Sussex County Council for the Regional Economic Development Plan for North Horsham in 2016. I'd also highlight the points made by the enterprise team
in point 626 on page 35 of your packs. This relates to the the questionnaires undertaken by Muse of Local Economy. They did not, my understanding is they did not look at B1 type commercial entities. They looked at grade A, which is understandable from commercial perspective, but doesn't reflect the needs of the local economy and the types of local businesses. There are indeed, according to the enterprise team, plenty of smaller micro businesses for whom this site is suitable. I'd just like to highlight what's happened to Horsham in the last 30 years. Our economy has changed dramatically. When I moved here 30 years ago, over 2,000 people worked for RSA and 1,200 worked for Novartis. Both of those employers have almost disappeared. We need to create economic opportunity in this town. We don't want, in my opinion, we don't want to become a retirement settlement. We need to create employment opportunity within this ward, and this site is a key one.
Could you bring your comments to a conclusion, please? Thank you, Councillor.
In conclusion, therefore, I recommend that in light of the uncertainty around the local plan, that this application is deferred until we have a greater understanding of the validity of the current local plan under consideration.
Thank you very much.
Before my colleague discusses more detailed matters, I'm sure members are aware our current local plan is the 2015 Horsham District Planning Framework. I think the plan Councillor Emery is referring to is obviously our submission draft, which, as you know, is stalled, carries limited weight in decision making, and it would be unreasonable to hold decisions until we understand what's happening with that plan. So my advice is obviously to consider this application in the context of our current local plan and national policy. The officer here has recognised it is a departure from our 2015 plan, so we fully recognise that, but that we consider there are material considerations that warrant a different view. I'll just pass to my colleague to follow up on some of the detailed matters.
Thank you. So in the report, reference to the emerging local plan is in there, and its importance as a local site within that plan. But it also, as Emma says, we have to give that limited weight at this time. So then we have to look at the current local plan, which earmarks this for education purposes. So that use was discarded a long time ago as not being viable for this site. So then it's whether or not this could be used for employment purposes. So then we have to look at policy 9 of the current local plan, which states that you can develop sites which have a commercial use subject to them being marketing and show that it's not viable. So that we've always made it very clear to Muse and the applicants and the agents it's incredibly important for them to show that this market is undertaken, given this is quite a large site, the 25,000 square meters of commercial floor space as it was approved under the outline consent. Again, with the outline consent, it's also to note that that has expired and can't now be implemented. And so they have undertaken a marketing. It's been very thorough. As I said, it's been for like a number of years. And we think it's comprehensive, taken on board our comments and adequately demonstrate that this phase 3 site is not viable for commercial use. So they've taken on board the comments from a policy team and also our enterprise team, and they have addressed some of their comments. So this takes into account the comments regarding the potential for micro business accommodation and testing lower costs flexible for all phase employment. So the addendum outlines that these eventualities had been included in their marketing, but to no avail. So we feel like they have addressed the comments raised by the policy team. But notwithstanding their comments from the policy team have said that the reuse of this site is welcomed, and there are a number of material planning considerations, such as the need for housing, which need to be taken into consideration in determination of this proposal and given a respective weight. So in that respect, we have given way to the need to reuse this long redundant brownfield site within a built-up area of Horsham and the need to deliver housing. As you all know, we've got a 1-year housing supply. We're in desperate need of housing, and this site will deliver housing, including potentially 244 affordable housing units. So the NPPF put substantial weight on the need to reuse this site for a developable and appropriate proposal, given its location in a sustainable location. So turning to highways, as stated, we've got comments from two separate transport consultants, and that was something we did in the last application because the site was formerly owned by the county, so it was considered appropriate to have independent comments, which we've got from Stantec Transport Planning. And they both agreed that this site is appropriate in terms of its highway impact. And you will note that there's been 4 separate comments from the highways, and there was a number of discussions with Stantec to get to this point. So the transport assessment undertakes comparison of trip rates using current data from TRIX, and this compared against the trip rate agreed for the previous application for the outline consent. And as Emma said, it's apparent that the previously agreed trip rates for the consented use was much higher for the commercial use, and as such with the residential. And this is a consideration for this application. So if you look at the level crossing, that has also been taken into account. There will be an impact on people queuing, especially at AM and peak times. And so it's calculated that at peak times to the west, there'll be an increase of 4 cars, and then the eastbound an increase of 3 cars. But given the space either side, there's enough space to take into account that increase. And as I said, that is at peak times, so it won't necessarily be that position throughout the day. So we feel like the level crossing impact has been taken into account. In terms of the bridge, this is something which came up as part of the previous application, and I've gone through in the report on the paragraph 6.139. I've outlined the reasons why we feel it's not appropriate or to include this to this scheme to include a bridge. So the first one is the benefits. So in terms of benefits, the new bridge would only result in a marginal reduction in travel distances and time between the current situation, potential situation. So as I said, it's only going to reduce that in a couple of minutes in terms of the benefits you're going to get instead of walking round. So there's limited benefit there. So it's only like a 5-minute benefit. In terms of build duration, the applicant has indicated the build out for bridge would be 4 to 5 years from the approved design stage. So this takes into account the hoops you have to jump through to go get a bridge across Network Rail. So if this is incorporated in the scheme, this could potentially delay the commencement of works for quite a substantial period, and this could have an impact on the applicant's funding, as I said, which is partly reliant on Homes England grant funding. So this could create uncertainty around the delivery of an approval scheme. Then there's a feasibility. So if you look at where the bridge could go, the existing site is surrounded by existing established land uses. It's got a school, residential properties, and a commercial estate business park, which separates it on the other side. So if you provide it potentially to the southwest, where it can only logically be sited, so that's within this phase, it will land either in Plainfield serving a day nursery and college or the end of a residential road. So in this location, the bridge required would be extensive, as in order to link Hurst Avenue, it would need to be a minimum need to cross the railway lines and what appears to be large service area for the buildings. So it may also need to go through the school playing field, and such loss may prevent the school from complying with educational standards and county requirements in respect of play space for a number of students. As such, the feasibility of this bridge, a bridge in this location, is questionable. Then there's costs. So the applicant has indicated a new bridge would cost between 5 million and 8.5 million. We feel that this is disproportionate costs given the limited benefits of a new bridge here, and the additional cost is likely to have implications for viability of the site, which may, for instance, reduce the amount of affordable housing to provide it. Then finally, in terms of planning, there is no planning requirement for provision of a new bridge here. The highways teams have not required a new bridge in order to make the development acceptable from a planning perspective. So overall, whilst the bridge would benefit to this scheme, these benefits would be limited and the feasibility of delivering bridge is questionable Also, there are cost and timing concerns, which have implications for the delivery of the bridge over this site. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I now will open the debate for members of the committee. Thank you. Any member wishing to speak on this application? Councillor Vickers, yes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the planning officer for the very full explanation about the bridge. I'm very disappointed to hear that, though. Whilst I'm disappointed also that the commercial units are no longer proposed here, this is indeed a brownfield site, which is, I support the redevelopment of it. And as been said, we do need more affordable housing, and it is a good site for that sort of housing, close to the town and close to the station. I do, though, have some serious concerns about safe crossing and pedestrian access to and from the site. It's going to be a very high density development, so there will be a lot of cars going in and out. And I have sympathy with Mr. Friswell's comments about easy and safe walking to and from this site, which I think is essential. I would have liked to have seen the bridge. I understand why the officer's saying it's questionable, I think was the word you used. But I'd be interested to hear what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member wishing to speak? Okay, 3 hands went up immediately. I'll start with Councillor Livingston and move to the left, and Councillor Trott and then Councillor Croker. Thank you.
Okay, I've got 2 points I'd like to mention. I note and I welcome the commitment at the moment that all developments dwellings will be provided to approve document M for accessibility, M42, and wheelchair access. There are a number, I think works about 5.5% for M43. Now, I've already corresponded with officers on this, and I'm concerned that the developer may change that as the development proceeds, and we haven't got a policy in place. So I'd just like to register that issue. The other issue I have is this is a high density development. Now, I was brought up in a council house. We had a garden, a sizable garden where we could grow our vegetables, and I still grow my own vegetables to this day. Now, these have got very small gardens, the ones that have got gardens. Has any consideration been given to nearby allotments and the availability of the allotments? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come?
So with the comments on the M42 and M43, yes, we encourage that as a season of the benefit, but we don't have any policy to require it to be in place. So it's not something we can condition. Some neighbourhood plans do have that policy, so then that would be a policy requirement. But no, we are, as I said, we are trying to encourage it, but it's not something we can insist on, and also we can't stop them coming in later if they want to amend that. As I said, there's no policy requirement at this time for that to be in place. So I wouldn't necessarily agree it's high density. It's sort of medium density, I would say. We did push for this to be higher density. We wanted to make as the MPPF requires, we wanted to make the best use of this site. Yes, it has 7 blocks, but they're only 4 stories, so they could potentially go higher. But what the developer has taken on board is a balanced approach to include the correct amount of parking and also open space. So you've got a leap and lap there. So they could have gone in a sustainable location. An argument could have made that this could have been much higher density. So with less car parking, because of its proximity to the town, it would be a good argument that would be a good use of a brownfield site. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's high density. I would say it was medium density, but that's my opinion. You do have gardens for the houses, so yes, they are small, but that's kind of what we get now, and what a lot of people see as what the market requires. But as I said, there is a leap and a lap here, and there's a southern park, so it does include some open space, and it's also very close to Horsham Park and other facilities. So in this location, that's considered appropriate. Thank you.
You can come back, Councillor Livingston. Yes.
Thank you for your responses. I'm still concerned that we're not taking into account, we've got 1,000 people on this site, possibly living there, and I don't think any of the dwellings will have enough space to grow vegetables as I would expect. Allotment provision in Horsham is pretty poor, and I think in the future we've also got to consider that with this type of application. Thank you.
Just to say, obviously the level of sill this application generates will depend on the level of affordable housing, but generally speaking, you know, in principle, sill monies could be used to provide allotments. Obviously the difficulty quite a lot of the time is the provision of land, so you'd have to have land available. I think it will be difficult to substantiate a refusal on that basis, but I think there is a wider conversation around allotment provision, which we can feed back to our leisure team. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Trott.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I mean I applaud this, it's a site that's long needed development. I can remember going there many years ago for business reasons, and it's tragic the way it's been left to rot. However, with this plan, there are major problems with it. Firstly, traffic and transport. I note that the travel consultants and transport consultants have made their recommendations and have said that there appears to be no issues with these or minimal impact. I just can't see that. I use that as a commuter route myself sometimes, and to say 3 or 4 cars either side of the level crossing, I think that cannot be realistic with potentially 1,000 cars going into that site if you take that everybody has 2 cars these days in most families. So I wonder whether that can be looked at in a slightly more realistic light. It doesn't sound very realistic. It's always been a tight spot for transport down there anyway, and this will only make it worse. I also echo Councillor Vickers' comments about the economy and the fact that it is a shame, and I wonder how thorough it was, and wonder whether there were other classes of business that could have been looked at. As Councillor Emery said, there used to be 2 big employers in the town, Novartis and Royal Sun Alliance, and they're no longer there in the main. And we are in danger of not, I mean, I don't see it as a retirement home. I see it as a London dormitory, which you see with this kind of town happens all over the south of England, within striking distance, within an hour of London. This just turns into a dormitory. Noted about the affordable housing. Also noted no mention at all anywhere of social housing, which is a little bit disappointing because that's the real need in Horsham. And also echoing the first speaker's point, the gentleman, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but no community facilities unless I've missed something. And that's a shame because there will be local community with 1,000 people living there, plus if you include the children, then there is some kind of community facility required in that area. And I wonder if any of my colleagues have any thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just quickly in terms of highways, we have to recognise that we approved the application in 2018. Obviously, that was a little while ago, so we have to bear that in mind. But that had a greater impact on the highway network, and that application was approved. At that time, we had the county highway engineer and Stantec, an independent transport consultant, assess it and consider it acceptable. The same has happened here. So the second application, again, a significant technical information on highways has been submitted, and that has been considered acceptable by 2 highway experts. I recognise there is local concern, but we have evidence before us to say that the impacts are acceptable. I don't think the position is there are no impacts, but the impacts are acceptable. And whilst there may be a concern, we have no evidence to counteract not only comments from the county engineer, but in this case, an independent transport consultant who's commented on the scheme. So I think we have to bear in mind that position when making decisions. In terms of community use, I think that's a very fair point. Obviously, my comment around SIL is still relevant there, but whether or not this development generates that, we obviously do have a SIL pot available for community facilities. In the 2018, there were some community facilities proposed within the retained buildings on the other part of the site. My understanding that's not currently being proposed in the alternative scheme, but obviously that's not before you at the moment. So that, you know, that might be a consideration as part of that scheme. In terms of social housing, obviously again we have a policy in terms of 35% and the recommended mix, so it's not in conflict with the policy to not provide that, though we all recognise that is a benefit, you know, for any scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Croker.
Thank you, Chair. It probably comes as no surprise that most of my comments are about highways. Firstly, 6.107 of the report refers to an east-west cycle route through the site, but I haven't yet to find any detail about that. So that's my first point. Would you like me to carry on or with the other points?
That is a requirement, which is with it. I think it's with a condition. So let me just check for you. I'm pretty sure there is a condition required. Yes, condition 33 requires details to show a connection to enable cyclists to leave and enter Parsonage Road in about the proposed development. So yes, there's details to be submitted.
I'm sorry, will be submitted.
Yes, so the condition requires details to be submitted for approval.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, I note that quite a lot of the road widths within the site are 4.5 metres. Again, highways seem to think everything is all right, but I point out the highways that a transit van is 2.5 metres between the mirrors. Something's going to give, and I suspect it's the footway again. As I've got the floor, I probably ought to mention the deletion of the Copenhagen crossing at the entrance, which would have reinforced the current highway code regulation. And in a similar vein, I note that the footway, on the basis of the plans that we've been able to see, stops and starts rather a lot. And I have concerns there, both in terms of priority for people on foot, and also whether there'll be drop curbs at all these stop-start locations. But I'm not sure how we get any reassurance about that. Finally, though, as a change, I'd like to thank the tree officer for his help in what I think is a new condition 10, which I don't believe the officer mentioned earlier. Thank you.
So yes, I mean, in terms of the pavements, there are pavements throughout the site, and sometimes they do stop, but there is an element of shared street surface here, but we feel it's appropriate. There's the main boulevard through the site has got is wide enough, and it's got trees and landscaping and a pathway all the way through. So there's also pathways in the tertiary streets, so that's considered appropriate, and is better than a lot of schemes I've seen before, to be honest. Yes, the tree condition is noted, so that's in the addendum, the replacement condition requiring details to be submitted to ensure the protection of the trees along the northern boundary. With the Copenhagen crossing, that raised concerns due to the width of the Parsonage Road access. So it was something we would want to try and encourage, and I don't think we have many of those in the town. But unfortunately, both the highways consultant and the the highways, county highways, didn't think it was appropriate in this location. I think that was due to the size of the access. Wouldn't be safe, is what my understanding. And the highways, the county highways, did look at the width of streets and consider those appropriate. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from committee members? No? Okay, in that reason I shall go to the vote. And the recommendation is to approve full planning permission subject to the submission of further ecology surveys prior to determination of appropriate conditions and completion of necessary 106 agreement within 4 months of the decision of this committee, or such longer period as is agreed by the Director of Place acting reasonably and properly. Therefore, all those in favour, please show.
(11)
All those against?
None against.
Any abstentions?
2 abstentions.
Okay. Therefore, the recommendation to approve full planning permission has been passed. Thank you very much.
Just 1 minute while we swap laptops.
Yeah, we'll just take a short break. If any members of the public wish to leave, they
Okie dokie. So we'll move straight on. We'll move straight on, please.
Okay, so I'm presenting Roseview Park. Hopefully that's better. I have been told that I'm softly spoken, so hopefully this is you can hear me now. So I'm presenting Roseview Park. This is located at the junction of Hill Farm Lane, which is the if you can see you can't see my mouse. It's a bit slow. There it is. So the horizontal street there, and Stane Street to the east, which runs vertical to the application site. It's north of the built-up area boundary. This is just an aerial to show the nearby Grade 2 listed buildings to the east, with Stane Street running between them. When you're actually stood in the street scene just outside the Grade 2 listed buildings, you can't actually see the caravans that are there currently existing. So there are 2 there currently. The need for gypsy pitches currently runs at about 80 pitches between 2023 and 2028, although it's acknowledged that 9 have been approved recently. There's still a substantial unmet need. So there's 2 pitches that were proposed that you could see within that previous aerial here, although they haven't built the day room just to the north of that. Sorry? That's fine. Okay. So there was an application that was refused at committee. This was then allowed at appeal and then dismissed at High Court due to water neutrality. So the allowance of the appeal was quashed. The inspector was fairly clear, I think, in terms of the reasons for refusal. So it was refused at committee for concerns about the character, impact and landscape, and concerns that the nearby settlement would be overwhelmed. The inspector and the High Court made it quite clear that actually they didn't think that those reasons were credible, because it was only for an additional 2 pitches at that time. So the only reason it was refused, that there was a problem and it was dismissed, was water neutrality. The current application is here, so it's a slightly more formalised arrangement. Same quantum of development that the inspector said previously was acceptable. I actually think it represents a preferable form of development because it follows something of a loose building line with the dwelling houses to the west. Yep. And then the next photo is when you're stood up the road slightly. There's parking in advance of the application site, and it's actually a view towards the Grade 2 listed buildings. So you can see that there is a fairly significant separation distance there. And then there's a photo to the right, which is from an elevated position. It's essentially just a Google Street View picture to show that you can't really see within the site very much, and that's slightly because of the topography of the site and that it's somewhat set back from the street scene. So I think this establishes that it should be, well, it's a lot of recommendations. My recommendation is essentially for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We don't have any registered speakers for this, so we'll go straight to the committee. Anybody would like to say anything? Well, then we'll go. Oh, nearly out of time. Councillor Clark.
Chairman, I have plenty of things to say. I'm glad that, in fact, the report, the oral report is given, actually expanded on what was missing from the report. Otherwise, I would have done it, because what was presented in the written report was an edited account of what actually happened. I'd point out the history of this site actually started off with 6 wanted on this site. After discussions with Horsham, it was basically reduced to 2, which was granted at the time. Then they wanted another 2, And that's what we were talking about that went to appeal. I have seen nothing in the documentation saying that the High Court made any comment about the grounds for appeal, at least not on the ones that I found on the website, apart from the fact it was water neutrality, it was quashed, but I can't see it on the document I'm looking at here. The basic problem is that the agent in his thing says that there's no residential properties nearby, but as was shown on the chart, there are residential properties nearby and many residential properties around. The inspector at the time basically said there was no data or evidence given about the impact on the amenity of local residents of having more pitches in this location. On the previous applications, the parish council mentioned Oakdean. At that time, that was 4 pitches, it's now 9. There are more applications going in, so there's 13 pitches within a 700-metre radius of this location. In the summer of 2024, the position in this council was that 34 district sites across a district, 14 unauthorised sites, of which 5 are not tolerated. A site is tolerated if there's only a limited reason for being unlawful, like water neutrality, for example. The position in summer of 2025 is 43 sites across a district, 23 unauthorised sites, 10 not tolerated. So an increase in authorised sites not tolerated, 100%. Increase in sites across a district, 27%. Within 6 kilometres of Codmore Hill, this location, there are 7 unauthorised, not tolerated sites, which is an increase of 133%. The point I'm trying to make here is impact on the community, because my post bag, the biggest thing I have on my post bag is actually Gypsy and Traveller sites in the Pulborough Parish area and just outside it. There's 13 static caravans and 10 mobile caravans across these sites that I've indicated. There are 10 unauthorised, not tolerated sites in the district. So 70% of the unauthorised, not tolerated sites, so you can understand the impact on the community and the impact on the amenity of the neighbourhood, are within 6 kilometres of Codmore Hill. And several of these have gone in despite stop notices and enforcement action, which was ignored. So if we look at the number of pitches as referenced in, also moving on from that argument, which is the impact on the neighbourhood, on the locality, in the greatest sense of the word. The inspector just looked within 700 metres or 500 metres of this site, but it's a bigger problem, is what I'm trying to get across here. If I look at the number of pitches as referenced in section 6.6 of the committee report, the report notes a planned period 2019-2036, 128 pitches are needed in the report. This is contrary to the regulation 19 submission, which basically said we needed 77. This was reflected in the local plan that we submitted, which is somewhere in limbo at the moment. Opinion Research Services conducted another review in July 24 and concluded an additional 2 pitches were added, which makes 79. So the committee report appears to include 29 pitches that do not meet the planning need, and as well as other sites which don't seem to be anywhere in our plans. So the report of the committee is unclear as to what actually the total need is needed. If you look at your 6.6, a need for 93 pitches was a position at regulation 18, not what is stated in the report. And that was amended, as I've explained, at regulation 19 to 77 and then 79. So I do question the strength of the arguments behind the need, as well as the impact on the amenity and the neighbourhood of the basically the Codmore area, Codmore Hill area, and basically Pulborough as a whole. This is really a very contentious set of items to be considered by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Oh, sorry, Chairman. I was
okay.
looking at the wrong chairman there. Thank you, Councillor Clark. In terms of need, I think my colleague clarified, and we went back to our strategic planning colleague. Is it stop working? No. you're correct, there was a study done. I think that was kind of a need that met the definition and perhaps need that didn't. And so I think that's where that number came from. So we've clarified the current need is 80. I think you can appreciate the need is never static and will change. So that's our understanding at this moment in time. That need is still significant and carries significant weight in decision making. So we have to recognise that. There was national change in policy a little while ago, so the tilted balance applies now for Gypsy and Traveller applications, so we need to be mindful of that. My understanding is that the High Court didn't actually comment on the merits of the case. What happened is, what is normally the circumstance, is that the application will be quashed, and this application was quashed because it was around the time that water neutrality, we received the position statement from Natural England, and whilst we updated pins on that, they determined the application without considering it. So we mounted a challenge which was successful. Obviously, when an application is quashed, it's redetermined. And so the planning inspector redetermined it and dismissed it on water neutrality grounds only. And as my colleague said, considered all other matters acceptable. So you might have an opinion on that, but that decision is there and it carries significant weight in decision making. So we need to be mindful of that. I think it's very difficult to mount an argument in terms of any overbearing impact on the community, particularly a small site like this. And we have to recognise, yes, it is a Gypsy and Traveller site, but essentially it is a residential use. So I think we need to be mindful of that as well. I think it's, in our view, the outstanding issue whereby the appeal was dismissed has been addressed, and therefore that's why officers are recommending approval. Thank you.
Councillor. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Clark.
Well, thank you for that. My contention was that the inspector, when he made his comments, was looking at it in a very narrow definition, and he didn't actually look at a more holistic view. And the final point was I'm going to make is about the planting. What happened is that the last time there was planting meant to be put in and there was no planting. I noticed the condition in here, and I'm very glad at least that it's been made prior to occupation, if I've read it correctly. I think that's, if this is granted permission, I think the planting needs to go in before occupation, because what happened the last time is it never happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Chairman. But bearing in mind the final comment by my colleague beside me with regard to planting, the lane-side trees which were removed were subject to a TPO. Was there any enforcement taken about that when the trees were removed, please?
The the tree officer has commented. I'm not going to attempt that with braces in, and has no objections to the proposal on the basis of the removal of the trees, which has occurred prior to the application being submitted.
Okay, thank you. I only asked because the last two items we're discussing this evening are all about TPOs and the respect we should be showing for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vickers.
My questions have both been answered, Chairman. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else want to say anything?
As a point of order, I don't have the right to vote on this because it's in my ward. I just thought I'd point it out just to make sure that everybody's aware.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll move to a vote then. The recommendation is to approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions. We have 11 people entitled to vote.
A point of order, can a condition about the planting be enhanced to say before occupation, please?
It does say before.
as Councillor Clark has pointed out, it says approved in accordance with the approved details and implemented within the first planting season following the first occupation of any part of the development. Yes, I think it depends when that is and when the planting season is, I guess, but we have to be mindful of. But I think in principle it could be prior to occupation if that's what members felt was necessary.
Yeah, I think there's a suggestion that that's necessary. Yeah. Do you want to propose an amendment, please, Councillor Vickers?
I'm just happy to enhance that one you've just read out to say before first occupation.
They have to delay their occupation if it's not the planting season.
Seconder, please. Councillor Lambert. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have a vote on the change to the condition. So we're going to change the condition to be prior to occupation. All those in favour?
That's unanimous in favour.
Thank you.
Then we need to vote on
And now, with that condition altered, we will now vote, please, on the proposal to approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions and the modified condition. All those in favour?
That's 10 in favour,
Against?
1 against.
Thank you. So that is approved. And back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next agenda item. So I just look at my list here. Is the DC 241502 Sussex. I'm going to get this wrong. Topiary at Neldretts Lane, Rudgwick. Could the officer please make the application? Thank you.
So I'm presenting Sussex Topiary on Neldretts Lane in Rudgwick. It's probably a good time to mention the inaccuracies within the report in regards to the ward where I put Pulborough rather than Rudgwick. So just pointing that out, that was very kindly highlighted to me. So thank you for that correction. So the application site is south of Neldretts Lane and is outside of the built-up area boundary. The image is just an aerial view of the existing Gypsy and Traveller pitch, which this application closely reflects. That's where the star is where the proposed application is, and to the left of that is the existing one. So the current application shares a lot of the characteristics. It is just an exact replication. It's got an area of amenity within the centre of the site. There's 14 parking spaces and a day room for each of the proposed pitches. So there's site history with this application site as well. So the 4 pitches that are there currently were initially refused for character and landscape concerns. The inspector disagreed with this reason for refusal. However, it was allowed at appeal.
No, dismissed on water neutrality.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, it was dismissed on water neutrality grounds. So a further app came in for another 4 pitches, which was refused just on landscape, and that's the one that was dismissed on water neutrality. Okay, and there's just some more site photos of the application site itself. So the existing access would remain, and the picture to the left shows that the existing pitches within the site are quite screened. So the photo I've taken in the bottom corners there on the right is just to show that you can't really see into the site, and it's something that the inspector noted, is that the site is well enclosed and wouldn't have much of a bearing at all on the surrounding area as a result of that. I would recommend it for approval subject to conditions again.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers on this item, therefore I'll move to open the debate with the members of the committee. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I note that in comments from the public on this, that on this application, there are many complaints about the smell of sewage, and that there's a constant smell ever present. I'm wondering if we could, and I notice in the conditions, condition 1, I think it's condition 1, 3, pre-commencement condition, could be changed so that it, rather than just a proposed means of foul water disposal, and I note that there are some houses to the north of this, so presumably they are connected to the sewage system, whether or not we could actually make the area slightly more pleasant by insisting that a condition should be that they plumb the foul water straight into the sewage system.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit in terms of the foul drainage strategy, during the course of the application, consultation was had both formally and informally with our environmental health team, who have reassured me that actually they are in the final stages of applying for mains foul drainage. However, the septic tank that they've got currently is meant to be sufficient to account for the existing site. However, the condition really is just to ensure that foul drainage situation is sorted via mains access. So it would all be connected.
So are you saying that it will be connected to the mains drainage system, or
That is our expectation, and that are the conversations that have been had to date.
should it not be made a condition to ensure that happens to satisfy the local residents?
It's difficult because we can't make them, because there may be an acceptable alternative. Now, our understanding is, as my colleague said, that is the discussions that are ongoing to resolve the matter. But I think the difficulty is there may be an alternative. So I think we don't, and I'm aware we've ever put in a condition, you must connect to the mains. It's always details to be submitted and then we would assess them. So I don't think we should be taking a different position in this instance. Obviously, the details will be submitted and assessed and consulted with our environmental health teams who have already been involved in the site and are aware of those issues.
Fair enough. I'll withdraw that request. Thank you.
Councillor Vickers, yes.
Just a question, would it be possible to put an informative on the petition to say that that's what we would like to see, if possible?
Yes. Would you put that forward?
I would propose that if somebody would second it.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Informative, we don't need to actually vote on that. Okay, could I ask that the officer captures that in the minutes, please? So, thank you very much. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. My old chestnut paragraphs 3.11, 3.12 with 3.13. Fire hydrants, I don't see anything in the conditions about fire hydrants. So therefore, it's always a bone of contention, because sometimes we do include it and sometimes we don't.
It's true. Yeah.
So therefore, in this case, looking at the distances from where the hydrant is according to the fire officers, I can't find the conditions unless I've missed it. I think we should add a condition saying that they need to provide a fire point. And please note 3.13, that evidence will also be required to show fire service vehicle access meets the requirements, blah, de blah, de blah. I've not seen it anywhere in the conditions, so that needs to be addressed, I would argue.
Why not?
And if, I'm quite happy to make a proposal.
In terms of the access, obviously it is an existing site. So I think it's difficult to add additional requirements when it's utilising an existing access. I can't tell you right now whether it does meet those requirements or not, but ultimately it is an existing access serving existing gypsy pitches, which was considered acceptable at that time. In terms of the fire hydrant, I think if you wish to suggest a condition, Councillor Clark, we can impose that if that's voted on, and I will take it away. I have had some conversations with building regs, with the building control team in terms of fire hydrants, but I clearly need to bottom this out a bit more because I recognise the point you're making. Thank you.
It's a good idea.
So, Councillor Clark, do you want to put forward your wording for the condition?
Thank you. So, somewhat where now is it? So regulatory condition 18 then, that a fire hydrant, according to the fire and rescue specifications, is provided on the site or as near as possible to the site as practicable. Thank you.
I'll second that, Chairman.
Come to you in a moment, sorry.
Okay.
It's a short wording, Councillor Clark, that fire hydrants in accordance with the fire rescue requirements are available on site. Is that sufficiently wordy for you?
Or near, or
Will be provided.
Be provided, yeah.
Adding the last point there, on site or appropriately near to the site. Okay. Okay, Councillor Vickers, you wish to second that motion?
I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Okay, that condition, sorry. All those in favour of that condition, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Therefore, that condition will be added. Are there any final comments before we go to Councillor Croker? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Our drainage guys didn't seem terribly happy with some of the aspects of surface water drainage from the site. I think that might be related to possibly Councillor Knowles' comments.
Yeah.
Looking at the pre-commencement condition, it says shall commence unto a drainage strategy detailing the proposed means of foul water disposal. Would it be feasible to have foul and surface water disposal has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority?
Are you proposing to alter the wording of condition 3 such that it includes foul water disposal and surface water disposal?
Yeah. Some members can do if they feel it's appropriate. You can do if you consider that appropriate, Councillor. You could suggest that amendment if you consider it appropriate to do so.
I do, so I would like to suggest it, please.
Just need the wording, clear wording, please. And the condition that you're adding it to.
So this is condition 3, pre-commencement condition.
Yep.
After the word foul.
And so you want to use foul and surface water
Disposal. Yeah.
Okay. Just for clarity then, amend the condition pre-commencement condition to add the word surface water alongside foul. So we read foul and surface water disposal. Yeah. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. That condition will be amended accordingly. Any final comments before we go to the vote on this? No? Okay. Therefore, the recommendation on this particular item, is to approve the planning application. Sorry, I'll be with you in a moment. Lost my notes. To approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions as noted in the committee report. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Therefore, the recommendation as proposed by the officers has passed, has been approved by committee. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Moving on to DC 25 11981 Stanley Walk, Horsham. And please could the officer make a presentation to committee. Thank you.
Thank you. This application relates to an extended end terrace property on Stanley Walk within the built-up area boundary of Horsham. The property is identified by the red line and benefits from a small front garden and a larger rear garden. The road and parking bays are adopted highway and within a controlled parking zone. The property is currently laid out as a 5-bedroom dwelling, with the application seeking a change of use to a 7-bedroom house in multiple occupation. There are no external changes proposed, and the internal changes include the provision of ensuite bathrooms at first floor level, the subdivision of the ground floor living space, which is to the right-hand side of the ground floor plan, into 2 bedrooms, and the conversion of the kitchen and dining room into open plan communal living space. A more intensive occupation of the property would not be expected to result in increased noise and disturbance in this established residential location. In planning terms, the layout would provide an acceptable standard of accommodation for future occupants, and the HMO would require a licence which would ensure appropriate facilities and specifications within the property. West Sussex Council parking standards would require 3.5 spaces for a HMO of this size, and this compares to a 2.7 spaces for the existing 5-bedroom house. This parking cannot be provided on the site. The HMO would, though, be in a highly sustainable location with easy access to public transport and cycle storage provided to the rear of the site. Surrounding roads are also subject to parking restrictions, which are considered sufficient to ensure no adverse impact would arise from additional demand for on-street parking. This combination is considered sufficient to ensure the absence of parking would not result in a level of harm that would warrant a refusal of planning permission. The application is therefore recommended for approval as set out in the report and the accompanying addendum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the first public speaker, which is Iona Mackie. And you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Iona Mackie and I am a resident of Stanley Walk. I'm here to object to the proposal for the 7-bed HMO at number 1 Stanley Walk. I speak on behalf of many residents who are deeply concerned that this development is inappropriate for this location, would have a serious negative impact to our community. Please also note that there have been over 20 objections to this application. Firstly, parking and highway safety. The applicant and West Sussex County Council Highways may consider it sustainable, but it ignores the real situation on the ground. Parking is already oversubscribed, with residents frequently forced to park far away from their homes, even in other permit zones. This is particularly unsafe for residents with mobility issues, families with young children, or pregnant woman. We have regular illegal parking on the double yellow lines, which you could see from the street view, particularly during mosque prayer times, and also throughout the use of local churches and the Jehovah's Kingdom Hall. These particular events happen throughout the week, a variety of different times, also including the evenings, which obviously people come home from work, can't park. This has not been helped by the increase of parking charges within the town centre, which has led to more people using the permit zones to park than then walking into town to avoid these charges. There has been a recent incident on this property where double parking and blocking in multiple residents demonstrates the genuine harm already occurring before this HMO has been approved. Adding 7 bedrooms could also, obviously, you've already mentioned, add the additional parking pressures and guest spaces, and the existing streets cannot absorb the pressure without creating further congestion and safety hazards. It's a regular occurrence where I return home and I'm unable to park within my permit area, which has forced me to park within different zones, which also then further decreases the number of their parking spaces in that permit zone. This is not acceptable as someone who has to pay for a permit to park, especially as it is the most expensive permit in the Horsham area of Zone A. And also as a heavily pregnant woman, this is a pressing issue which causes more worry and concern as time goes on. The parking proposal is clearly contrary to policy 40 and 41 of the Horsham District Planning Framework, which requires safe and sustainable access for all. It's also stated on the Horsham District Council website there is in fact a waiting list for non-resident permits in Zone A, which points to the fact that parking is already strained and oversubscribed.
Could bring your comments to a conclusion, please. Thank you.
To conclude, this proposal fails to provide adequate parking, threatens highway safety, undermines the residential amenity and overdevelops the already congested area. It's contrary to policies 32, 33, 40 and 41 of the Horsham District Planning Framework. I urge the committee to listen to the residents' lived-in experience and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Gitano Paternostro, and apologies if I got that right. Wrong, sorry. Apologies if I got that right. Apologies if I got it wrong. I should have said apologies for getting it wrong completely. Thank you.
Okay, yes, I'm Gaetano Paternostro, is Italian name. I'm the agent of the application. I speak in support of the application. Consider that the application received several objections, but all are very similar. The main objection are 2, disturbance and parking. About disturbance, I do not consider this proposal will result in a material change in a day-to-day activity compared with a continued use as a single dwelling. The property is already a large 5-bedroom house that, as a family home, could reasonably accommodate up 8 people. A family house with several children can often generate more noise than adult in HMO. The HMO is for 7 adults and will be managed with to limit the disturbance. The applicant has clear interest to ensuring tenants are respectful and will carry out regular inspection to prevent vandalism or ongoing antisocial behavior. The applicant will put in place a formal HMO manager plan before occupation that set evening and nighttime quiet hour, strict limit on parties, clear procedures for handling complaint, and a staged enforcement process which include termination of tenancy after 3 record infraction. About the parking, the property is located within easy walking distance of Horsham station and local bus service. This application is supporting sustainable travel choice. Not all future occupants are likely to have cars, they typically use public transport. The HMO model can produce less cars than a large single dwelling. This can include also covered cycle parking for 7 bicycles at the rear. At the new dwelling, current benefit from residential parking permits cover 2 cars. West Sussex Way raised no objection to this proposal. For this reason, the change of use should be approved as it will provide well-managed accommodation to avoid any disturbance to the neighborhood community and promote sustainable travel. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Sono inglese, non parlo bene italiano.
I know, the same for me.
All thinking what I said there, didn't you? Okay. Right, moving on, we have no further registered speakers. Do you want any comments on this? Yeah.
Yeah, just to pick up on the parking issue, I think as officers we do appreciate the concerns being raised. In terms of the parking standards, the difficulty is that the change of use essentially creates a need for one additional space to be provided as a result of change of use. And it's quite difficult to quantify that additional space is of such significance as to result in a level of harm that would warrant a refusal of planning permission, particularly when it's within a parking permit area where the permit system allows a degree of control to be provided over a number of spaces being allocated a permit. So although we appreciate the concerns being raised, we don't feel it's of such significant weight as to warrant a refusal of permission.
Okay, thank you. Open this up to debate by the members of the committees. Councillor Vickers and then Councillor Franklin. I'll come to you.
Chairman, a very quick question. I'm sorry if I misunderstood this. It's currently a 5-bedroom property, but it's going to become a 7-bedroom property. No alterations to the look of the outside of the building in any shape or form. Can you show me how the 5 bedrooms become 7 bedrooms, please?
So the 5 bedrooms are currently provided first floor level. The additional 2 would be created by subdividing the ground floor lounge into 2.
Which bit of the downstairs is being divided?
The left side is a ground floor.
Okay.
It's the right hand side of left hand drawing.
So each individual bedroom will have one person in each room?
Yeah, so it's a condition recommended restricting maximum occupancy to 7.
Fine, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Councillor Franklin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, mine's a connected point really in that, you know, I'm familiar with my children living in HMOs and some of the conditions they sometimes live in or have done in the past. And I would like some assurance really that if we have standards for minimum space for individuals within a 7-bedroom HMO, that we have some way of assuring ourselves that those space requirements are met. I think there are standards, but I'm not quite sure what they are for Horsham District.
Yeah, so it would need a licence from private sector housing, and that licence would ensure sufficient room sizes and specifications of kitchens and shared amenity space. Yeah.
I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Livingston. Councillor Murphy, do you want to say something on this?
Well, just to further clarify that, clearly the licence itself actually provides quality standards, but also the private renters bill, which is going through Parliament, will ensure that private landlords will have to meet the decent home standard, which is what housing associations and we as a council have to enforce that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Livingston.
My concern is fire safety. Within the document pack, there's a fire safety assessment. And to be quite honest, probably the worst I've ever seen. It talks about fire doors being 30 minutes, doesn't talk about what the rating of the walls is. It talks about escape windows from the first floor. Escape windows to where? Is it going onto the pitched roof, or you've got to jump out the window down to ground level? Yes, totally inadequate in my opinion. However, I've conveyed these, my opinion to the officers earlier today. However, what I'd like to do is to propose a pre-occupation condition that a suitable and sufficient fire risk assessment is provided in accordance with the Fire Safety Order of 2005. That's a pre-occupation condition.
Thank you, Councillor Livingston. We did discuss this, and my advice was that would not be appropriate. Well, we didn't discuss this particular condition, but in terms of replicating other legislation, as we've discussed, it requires a licence from Environmental Health. I confirmed with the officer today that would include consultation with the fire service. It would also, and I was sat with building control today, and I asked them the same question, and it would require building regulations, it would require a full plans approval, and that would also involve assessment of fire safety. So there are two other mechanisms. There is, whilst I recognise a fire statement was submitted, there's no requirement to submit one as part of a planning application. I think it's valid concerns to raise, but there are other legislations that will cover that point. So whilst I recognise the concern, it would not be appropriate or reasonable to add that planning condition on. Thank you.
Okay, but I would like to make it clear, in my opinion, that there isn't a sufficient room on the first floor for the house to actually hold, to have 7 separate resident, occupations, and an external escape stair will possibly be required on the first floor. Thank you.
If you could copy that in the minutes then, officer. Thank you very much. Councillor Vickers, have you got a hand up or you?
She's counting.
Okay.
She's counting.
I'm told you were counting. The Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm relieved to hear that, having brought it up at council last week, that this will be monitored by our environmental health people and they will be part of the listing. I heard what the speaker said about parking, and I understand what you're saying about, it's very difficult. One more in a parking area A, where you already have an overhang of people wanting to park because you haven't got enough permits to provide spaces for the people who've got permits. How can you explain that that's not going to be quite harmful to add more to the problem that you've already got? See what I'm trying to say? It's a bit of a clumsy way of saying it, but I think you get the gist. Sorry, it's area 1, I'm told.
So is the concern that the parking permits are already oversubscribed? Yeah. So I think it's my understanding that if an area is oversubscribed, then the council does have the ability to restrict further permits being issued to occupants of the property. And if essentially if they're not able to get a permit to park in Zone A, then they're not able to park outside the property.
Well, but my point is, to a certain extent, is that you've got a 5-bedroom house at the moment. We have assumed, we don't know, because we don't have any evidence, that there's basically 5 spaces already taken. There's 5 people wanting to park. So the argument is, if you do the calculations, you only need 1 more. The problem is there's no evidence actually says that you only need 1 more. You might well need 6 more. And that's the theory is, I don't see the evidence to back it up.
I think you're right. What actually happens in reality, we don't know, but that's the same for any development that we have. So the evidence that we have is the county parking standards and requirements there. So whilst I recognise what you're saying, that's no different to any development we permit with a level of parking. What my colleague was saying is the difference between the parking space standards required for a 5-bedroom house and the 7-bed HMO is effectively one space. That's the difference. I understand what you're saying, but I think that's the evidence, where the evidence base comes from in our view. And in terms of how would an inspector look at it, I can't see how they would look at it in any other way. In terms of that's the requirements, and therefore it comes down to we could only require 1 additional space. So therefore, is it reasonable to refuse an application because it's not providing that, particularly bearing in mind the location of this site? Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Therefore, we'll go to the vote. And the recommendation is to approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions as noted in the committee report. All those in favour, please show.
Eight, four.
All those against?
4 against
Any abstentions?
and 1 abstention.
Therefore, the recommendation to approve planning permission subject to appropriate conditions as noted in the committee report has been approved. Thank you. So moving on to item number 9, which is a TPO 1582 South Holmes Road, Horsham. Could the officer please make their presentation to the committee? Thank you.
Chair, just before we start, Councillor Raby and I need to make it clear that we're both ward councillors for Rugby South. So
Thank
we
you
will
very
not
much.
be voting.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a note here on that. Thank you. But thank you for raising it.
Thank you. This application seeks confirmation of a tree preservation order covering 24 trees in and around South Holmes Road, with the trees identified on the current plan. The next few slides show the trees in question, starting with trees 1, 2 and 3, which are at the top of the site at the junction of Hold Road and Forest Road. And it's because of an objection to the inclusion of trees 2 and 3, which are to the right of the picture, which is why this application has come before committee. Further down Hold Road, we've got trees 19, 20 and 21 going from right to left. And within South Holmes Road, looking towards trees 7, 8 and 9. The new order would essentially replace a historical area TPO and would ensure the continued protection of significant trees within the landscape. While the objection to trees 2 and 3 is acknowledged, it's not felt to provide sufficient justification not to continue protecting the trees in question. It's therefore recommended that the order is confirmed as set out in the report.
Thank you very much. No registered speakers for this particular item, so we'll open up the debate to the members. Any member wishing to comment on this particular? Councillor Van der Boer, yes.
Just, I think this is the first one of the. I've been on the committee. How many people object? How many people objecting are we talking about?
1. So the threshold for planning applications is 8, but for TPOs, that threshold doesn't apply.
Any other member wishing to speak on this particular item? No? Okay, therefore we will go to the vote on this and the recommendation. I realise, aware that Councillor Mercer and Councillor Levy are not able to vote on this particular application. Read the recommendation to confirm tree preservation order 1584 served to replace order 0704. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Therefore, the tree preservation order, as recommended by the officers, has been approved. Thank you very much. Moving on to TPO 1584. This is Chestnut End, Henfield. We do have speakers for this particular one, but before going on, I'd invite the officer to make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So this application seeks confirmation of a TPO to trees at the southern end of Chestnut End, as shown by the 4 circles on the plan. So this is a view looking south along Chestnut End with the trees shown by the red arrow, and a closer view looking north. So this photo shows 4 trees on the site and predates the removal of a maple tree. The TPO would cover the 3 remaining trees and a replacement tree which was secured through a condition which allowed the felling of the maple. Though it should be noted that the condition requiring the replacement tree is currently subject of an appeal. The new order would reflect the level of protection historically afforded to the identified trees, which for the reasons set out in the report are considered to be of high amenity value and of continued importance as a landscape feature within this urban setting. It is therefore recommended that the order be confirmed as set out in the report.
Sorry, just a point of clarity. I'm referenced in the last vote, I referenced the wrong TPO number, I believe. It should have been TPO 1582 rather than the reference I gave. Just for clarity.
I can forgive you that.
Thank you very much. The Vice Chair has forgiven me. Thank you. On this particular one, we have a public speaker, and that is Roger Smith. Thank you. And thank you for your patience. You've had to sit there for some time. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. The non-native oaks that are the subject of the temporary tree preservation order are all on our property where we have lived since 1993. The temporary order should not be made permanent as the result of the tree evaluation method for preservation orders, TEMPO, has been interpreted incorrectly. The score of 14 only indicates the trees possibly merit a TPO if considerations of human factors such as public pressure, resources, and, I quote, gut feeling, support such an order. No such considerations were presented in support of the tree preservation order. Our objection to the TPO is based on the following reasons. Firstly, no objection was raised to the application to remove one of the TPO trees at 5 Chestnut End last year. Thus, public pressure does not appear to be high in regard to the trees on our property. Secondly, the TEMPO scheme has been developed further by Torbay Council into the amenity evaluation for TPO scheme, which takes the other human factors into account. This schematic has been applied to the trees in question by me, both as they were in 1990 when the original order was put in place and as they are now. The total scores fall from 20 then to 13 now. This shows their amenity value has reduced. Most of this reduction results from the transformation of the adjacent tan yard in this time. Since 2001, the original pasture has been managed by the Henfield Commons Joint Committee to become a wooded reserve with 17 or so large trees on it. In consequence, the trees in Chestnut End no longer stand alone in the tan yard. So now many fewer people can easily see the trees than was previously the case. Meanwhile, the trees' influence on the nearby properties has increased significantly from shading, despite our regular approved pruning. In summary, this temporary order should not be given a permanent status as the evidence does not justify it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, there will be a statement read out by the officer now. This is from the local ward councillor, Jill Perry, which has been fully supported by local ward councillor Josh Potts. Thank you very much.
I am writing to support confirming the Tree Preservation Order 1584 in Chestnut End to protect 3 specimen oak trees and plant of a new tree to replace the recently felled Norway maple. These trees make an attractive clump on a green in Chestnut End. They add significantly not only to the immediate street scene but also to the local views and skyline in Henfield. They can be seen from the Tanyard Pond off Cagefoot Lane some distance away. This particular view through the Tanyard is a very special one in Henfield, much appreciated by local people and visitors to the village. It is appreciated that the present owners have taken good care of the trees for many years, and in their detailed argument against the order, they indicate that they have no intention of changing their current thoughtful management of the trees whilst they reside at Chestnut End. However, confirming the TPO will ensure that long-term careful management of the trees will continue in future, whoever the owners are. The objection states that public pressure to support this TPO confirmation has been lacking. However, I am sure that very few of the public have not been aware of the issue. I myself was not aware until it was listed on the planning committee for this hearing, so I have not commented previously. Locally, we understood in October 2024 that the felling of the Norway maple under DC 241471 in this group of trees was necessary because the tree was dead. Reasons given were for public safety and to protect the maple from falling on and damaging the other trees. The parish council requested, when not opposing its removal, that it should be replaced with a native tree. Discussion at that time suggested that this group of trees are valued. Our local tree warden, who offers advice to the parish council, has recently reiterated his view that these trees have local importance and that the Norway maple should ideally be replaced. He said, "There are now only 3 mature trees, non-native, 3 varieties of oaks, in the circular group now that the dying Norway maple has been removed. The 3 remaining trees are healthy, mature and have full foliage. I managed to speak to one of the residents there who told me that in autumn and spring the colours are magnificent. This clump, in my way of thinking, is definitely an important aspect of that whole area and should be given a renewed TPO classification. My last thought is that there should be a replacement made for the loss of the Norway maple. There should be enough space to plant a new tree, probably a short distance from the stump." That was Henfield's Parish Council's volunteer tree warden by email in October 2025. I have also communicated with Henfield Parish Councillors, including the Chair of Plans Advisory Committee and Josh Potts, the other Henfield District Councillor. All are in agreement that the TPO should be confirmed and that the trees add a great deal to the location. I hope that this TPO will be confirmed at committee.
Okay, before we just move forward, just a moment, Councillor Noel, we'll come to you in a moment. So, Mr. Smith, you don't need to remain in that seat, actually. You can take your seat back in the public gallery. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll open this now to debate by the members. Councillor Noel.
Thank you, Chairman. The reason I raised my hand straight away was because I didn't realise that there's going to be a statement made by the Chairman of Henfield Commons Joint Committee. I am the Vice Chair of that committee and therefore I have to declare an interest, so I will not be voting on this. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member wishing to comment on this? Or no? Oh, yes, right. Councillor Croker.
Yeah, very briefly, I fully support this order going forward. And I think it's, notwithstanding the care that the current owners have put into maintaining the trees, this gives some certainty going forward, which I think is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councillor Clark, yes.
Thank you. Based on what Councillor Croker said, maybe officers can explain the difference between what is there now and what is being proposed, because this is part of plan I have not come across before.
So the current, can we have a map on the screen? You're saying so much. So this is the map of the proposed order. So T1, T2 and T3, so that's the top left and right hand sides are the existing trees still on site at the moment. T4 with the C at the bottom is where the maple was, which was felled, and that's included to ensure we can secure the replacement tree as part of the order.
Sorry, we're talking across purposes here. What I'm talking about is we're looking to make a permanent TPO, and what's in place is a temporary TPO.
Yes,
What I'm trying to understand is what is the difference between the two, or what is the advantages or disadvantages?
Yeah, so we always issue a temporary TPO to start with, which we consult on before it's made permanent, and it's not been made permanent because of the objection which meant it came to committee. So it's exactly the same included. It's just it would now become permanent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments? No? Oh, yes, Councillor van der Boer.
The photograph at the back.
Yeah, so it includes the maple which They got permission to remove, yeah.
Okay, moving to the vote. I'll read this correctly this time. Is that to confirm tree preservation order 1584 served to replace order 0704. All those in favour, please show.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Therefore, the recommendation has been approved. Moving on to item 11, no urgent business other than just to members, could you remain in your seats for the conclusion of this meeting? Thank you. Finally, I'd like to thank the officers for their presentations and guidance this evening, and members for your contribution, and wish you all a safe journey home. And at 19:41, I bring the meeting of the Planning Committee to a close. Thank you.